Nobody ever took Earth seriously. We were the broken rock at the edge of the galaxy. No quantum gates, no alliances, just mud, blood, and loud mouths. For over 2 centuries, we were spectators to the stars, mocked, sanctioned, and left to rot after the failed orbital rebellion. They called us the primitive apes with nuclear sticks. I remember the first time I sat in a coalition tribunal. Shackled, bloodied, fed through a tube after 12 days in their cell. They laughed when I spoke, laughed when I warned them, told them Earth was changing. They said, "The dirt world breeds empty threats." That's what they called us, dirt worlders. They never saw what we were building under the surface. Not in our labs, not in our prisons, and definitely not in our minds. Because pain makes men either weak or clever, and Earth had grown real clever. The first prototype launched under Antarctica, a single burst of dark matter compression technology, coded through synthetic nerve algorithms, running on what used to be human brains. Volunteers or prisoners, no one knows. But we called it Project Abyss. The Abyss wasn't a ship. It was a curse wrapped in steel. And once it moved, physics cried. The day we launched the first Abyss-class warship, every telescope from Saturn to the Serpent Nebula tried to trace the anomaly. They saw a rift, then nothing. Not even radiation. The ship erased its own shadow. We didn't make announcements, we didn't ask for terms, we just waited. It was the Battle of Varick's Ring, where everything changed. The Galactic Front was too busy posturing against the Vorg. We slipped in through their outer territories, where surveillance was weak. The ship didn't fire lasers. It didn't need missiles. It launched what we called void spears. On the first strike, an entire Draxian dreadnought, 12 miles long, protected by triple barrier tech, just vanished. No explosion, no energy feedback. One moment there, the next, erased. The Galactic Council thought it was a fluke. Then we erased a moon. I stood on the command deck of the second warship, Leviathan 9, watching it all unfold. The screens didn't show much, just static where once there were fleets, but I didn't need confirmation. I could feel the power in the air. The silence of deep space felt afraid. The crew? Half of them were ex-cons, streetborns, men who grew up watching their brothers bleed in off-world mining colonies. No one wore medals, no one saluted. We didn't serve a flag. We served the memory of what they did to us. The embargoes, the sterilization programs, the selective assassinations. I don't care what the Xenos called it. We called it genocide. When the dark matter fleet finally decloaked near Kireth Prime, every galactic broadcaster froze. 12 ships, each bigger than the last, moving like ghosts, breaking space-time with every inch forward. They scrambled their fleets. The Grand Coalition sent 6 sectors of defense units, over 700 ships, and we sent one message: Earth answers now. No other words. When the signal ended, the killing began. 3 hours later, every enemy ship was gone. Not wrecked, not captured, just gone. Like we'd deleted them from existence. No survivors, no escape pods, no transmissions, just silence. Every race in the galaxy watched the feed. Billions saw it happen. And for the first time in recorded galactic history, Earth made them feel fear. You don't erase 700 ships and expect the galaxy to stay quiet. They didn't even have time to bury the dead. Mostly because there were no bodies to bury. Not a single escape pod. Not a single distress signal. Just an expanding field of static, where every Draxian ship used to be. Every sensor, every drone, every communications relay. Wiped. The Coalition called it a malfunction. The Confederacy of 9 Worlds blamed it on a gravitational fault line. The old lizards from the Ex-Lorem Senate just blinked slowly and muttered about prophecy and shadow machines. But we knew the truth. We built the truth. And truth had a name. Leviathan 9 had finished its debut. The rest of the fleet waited in silence, cloaked in the dark folds of nothing. They thought we were bluffing. They thought Earth had one secret ship, one miracle weapon, that maybe we'd reverse-engineered something, that maybe it was a lucky strike. That was the last time the galaxy got to be that stupid. My name? You won't find it in the records. They stripped it out, back when Earth was still under the Coalition's surveillance accord. They deleted our birth certificates, our school records, even the AI thought logs from our youth. They called it containment, said it was for stability, said it would prevent further rebellion. I was just 16 when the orbital riots broke out. Watched my father's lungs collapse in a Martian factory that ran its oxygen systems on expired filters. No compensation, no recognition. Just another Earth-born dead because we were low-priority species. That's when I stopped praying, stopped hoping, started building. Command was quiet on the bridge of Leviathan 9. We didn't run like other warships. No big speeches, no shining banners, no loyalty oaths. Just us, ghosts in a coffin made of dark matter and rage. Beside me, the AI flickered in its human-like interface. We called it grim. Not because it looked grim, but because it was the only thing that understood our kind of death. New scans confirmed target system activity, multiple civilizations mobilizing, priority channel from the Galactic Council. Urgent broadcast request, Grimm said, voice cold and smooth. Deny it, I said without looking up. No words left. They are attempting to classify Earth as a Class Black threat. Preemptive annihilation protocols in discussion. They always talk big before they bleed. Grimm paused, then added, They've offered to open peace talks. I laughed once. A hollow, dry thing. Now they want peace? Now? They weren't afraid of Earth. They were afraid of what we made ourselves become just to survive. The truth was, we weren't even supposed to have dark matter tech. Coalition law forbade its development centuries ago, said it tore at the fabric of the universe, said it wasn't meant for organic minds to use. That was their polite way of saying, only elites should hold that power. But Earth didn't ask permission. We built the first generator inside a dead station orbiting the sun, wrapped in a cloak made of mined comet dust and signal-jamming debris. Half of it ran off stolen tech. The other half ran off madness. The scientists who worked on it didn't wear names, just numbers. Some had tumors growing from prolonged exposure to synthetic gravity waves. Others went blind from exposure to raw space. And the core? It was powered by a black mass reactor so unstable it hummed nightmares into the walls. We lost 3 ships during early tests. Another exploded during internal field calibration, collapsing half of Saturn's 4th ring into itself. The 4th one? It lived. Leviathan 9 wasn't the most advanced of the Dark Fleet, but it was the first one I truly felt. When it moved, I could feel it like a heartbeat. When it attacked, it didn't fire like a ship. It fed like a predator. It wasn't a machine. It was an apology. One humanity gave itself for every century of crawling in the dirt. We didn't build it to conquer. We built it to punish. A week after Kyrith Prime vanished, the Council finally stopped pretending. They held an emergency summit on Tyrannel Station, 6 star systems away from the scene of the massacre. They broadcasted it galaxy-wide. The usual lies, the trembling fear behind polished language. I watched their Supreme Chancellor stutter through phrases like unprecedented aggression, unwarranted retaliation, violation of interstellar peace accords. But the best line? Earth must disarm. Disarm. Like we'd just give it all back, like they could make us weak again. They really had no idea who we'd become. We moved again. The next target wasn't military. That was the point. We'd tracked the location of Ilseth's cradle, a breeding colony where human children had been taken a generation ago, used for testing, genetic grafting, experiments. We weren't even called children in their reports, just bio-units. I found my brother's name in one of their archived data logs, Unit 12-77. Expired. Failed organ compatibility. So we sent Abyss-class Warship 4, Void Harvester, to visit. No warnings, no messages, no mercy. We gave them 5 seconds to look up, and then we took their sky. It was then the galaxy realized something critical. This wasn't just war. This was memory. This was vengeance. We weren't fighting for planets or power. We were settling debts. And the thing about humans? When we finally rise, we don't ask for justice. We become it. I remember walking down the corridors of Leviathan 9 after that. Steel walls breathed with the pulse of the dark reactor. Lights flickered from energy backlash. You didn't serve aboard a dark matter warship. You survived it. And the crew? They were all like me. Men who'd lost too much. Seen too much. Who knew that silence was more powerful than speeches? That sometimes the only way to teach a tyrant to fear is to burn his throne down. They tried to strike back. The Mirren clans launched a precision attack on Earth's old lunar defense grid, a joint force of 5 battlecruisers cloaked under advanced distortion tech. Problem was, we weren't on the moon anymore. We let them land, watched them plant their flags. Then we triggered the singularity mine buried beneath the sea of tranquility. They vanished, screaming into a gravity fold that never spat them back out. After that, no one stepped foot on Earth again. You'd think all this power would have made us proud, but that's the thing about war. After a while, even victory tastes like ash. Every new target added more weight. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't hear the engines hum without thinking of the silence that followed each strike. The silence of dying worlds. But I kept going, because I remembered Mars, because I remembered what they did to my brother, because they started this. And maybe the galaxy forgot what humans are. See, they thought war was about strategy. That power came from resources, from numbers, from technology. But Earth never won through logic. We win because we refuse to stay dead, because we turn trauma into fuel. Because when you cage an animal too long, it stops fearing the leash and starts breaking teeth. So when they gathered again, this time at Galdrin's Reach, a fortress thought impenetrable, we came not to talk. We came to end it. We sent all 12 dark matter warships, the full fleet, 12 black leviathans drifting through the stars like silent gods. Behind them, the cold wake of vanished systems. We didn't ask for surrender. We didn't demand anything. Just a single message. This is Earth. You don't speak for us anymore. And then we began. Galdrin's Reach wasn't a city. It was a floating fortress carved out of a dead star's remnants, layered in neutron plating, laced with antimatter traps, and guarded by 5 of the most ruthless armadas the galaxy had ever produced. It was supposed to be impenetrable. It had never fallen, not once, until Earth showed up. 12 ships, silent. No banners, no blaring signals, no negotiation. Just presence. And in space, presence means death is close. I stood on Leviathan 9's observation bridge, watching Galdrin through the tactical feed. The fortress glowed like a scar in the void, spinning slow, weapons primed, shields pulsing with ancient power. Their entire fleet spread in a defensive arc around it, hundreds of ships, each armed to the teeth. We weren't scared. We weren't impressed. We weren't even angry anymore. By then we were past emotion. We were just cleaning up. "Council transmission incoming," Grimm said. Voice quiet, neutral. "They're invoking emergency peace codes. Humanitarian plea." "Let them beg," I said without turning. "And record every word. Someone back home will want to hear their fear." I glanced at the crew. All men, hardened faces, men who had bled in dust-covered colonies, who had held their brothers' bodies after mining collapses caused by coalition negligence, men who remembered the sterilization orders, the propaganda, the way Earth children were shipped off to relocation centers that never had return manifests. None of them flinched. None of them questioned what we were about to do. Because this, right here, right now, was the reason we built the Abyss Fleet. When the first Void Spear launched from Leviathan 2, it tore through a defense carrier with surgical cruelty. No explosion, no warning, just silence. 1 second the carrier existed. The next, space itself had folded, consumed it. The response was immediate. The Galdran fleet lit up, like a hive struck with fire. They scrambled interceptors, fired plasma bursts, charged antimatter torpedoes. But you can't fight what you can't see. And you definitely can't survive what doesn't follow the laws of physics anymore. Leviathan 7 phase-shifted mid-combat, cutting through 3 enemy ships as if it were passing through fog. Their hulls folded inward. No alarms, just implosions. They tried cloaking. They tried retreat. They tried goddamn prayers. But none of it mattered. 3 hours later, Galdran's outer fleet was dust. Their final line was the fortress itself, a planet-sized beast, with enough firepower to light a moon on fire. But it wasn't the weapons that worried me. It was what was inside. Because buried deep within Galdran's lower decks were the truth tapes. The ones Earth was never supposed to see. The tapes that detailed exactly why Earth had been suppressed for so long, what they did to us, and what they feared we would become. "You sure it's still there?" I asked Grim. "Encrypted data vault detected. No remote access. Physical retrieval required." Of course, it was never going to be easy. I turned to my boarding squad. 30 men dressed in gravity-hardened suits, armed with dark pulse rifles and fusion breachers. They didn't need a speech. They didn't even ask for one. One nodded and said, "We go loud?" "We go loud," I replied. Breaching Galdran felt like stabbing a god in the throat. We hit the outer wall with twin EMP shells, cutting the shields for 6 seconds, just enough time to phase shift through the outer hull. Inside, it was chaos. Sirens blared in alien tongues. Soldiers ran panicked in corridors lit by emergency strobes. We moved like wolves through them. No hesitation, no second shots. We weren't there to win hearts. We were there for the tapes. The vault was 3 levels beneath the inner ring. Guarded by automated cannons, drone AI, and some twisted clone things that bled mercury when shot. Didn't matter. We cleared the floor. Burned it clean. Inside the vault, rows of crystal drives, each marked with ancient sigils and galactic code. We found them. Project Silence, Operation Drought, Human Suppression Protocols. And there it was. A drive marked E-Genesis. Grim patched into it as I watched. The first audio file played through my headset. I didn't speak, didn't blink, because I heard it. Their plan. The human mind is volatile, adaptive, too fast to control, too emotional to predict. Their species, left unchecked, could challenge us. So we divide them, starve them, shame them, break them with diplomacy, and poison them with false progress. They must never rise again. They feared us not because we were weak, but because they knew what we could become if we remembered who we were. And now it was too late for them. I transmitted the files to every ship in the Dark Fleet, sent them to Earth, to the colonies, to the resistance cells scattered across forgotten systems. No spin, no edits, just raw truth. By the time we left Galdran's vault, it was already starting. Worlds that had once ignored Earth were now rioting. Other enslaved species, like the Drathari and the Zental, began rising too. The great empire was cracking, and all we had to do was keep hitting it. But there was a price. There's always a price. 3 days after Galdron's fall, Leviathan 6 lost contact, then Leviathan 4, then 11. We traced the signatures. The energy patterns didn't match any known weapons. New tech? One of the crew asked. No, I said, jaw tight. Something worse. Grim confirmed it the next morning. Dimensional bleed detected. Feedback echo confirms they've built one. One what? A dark matter ship, not Earth-made. The galaxy had copied us, and now they were using our own monster against us. You have no idea what it feels like to face your reflection in war. Something you created, turned against you. Something they weren't supposed to have. Only Earth had the madness. Only Earth had the desperation. So how the hell did the Coalition pull it off? We got our answer during the ambush at Krivak Station. Leviathan 3 responded to a false distress signal from what looked like a mining vessel. When it arrived, the trap sprang. The Coalition didn't send fleets. They sent one ship, a new Abyss-class clone, built from stolen Earth tech, improved, faster, smarter. Inside it, a human, an Earthborn, but not one of us. We retrieved the logs after Leviathan 3's wreckage was recovered. The enemy pilot's name? Commander Dalton Rice, a former Earth scientist, a defector. The same man who'd once helped build the dark matter generator on our first prototype. He'd disappeared years ago. Presumed dead. Turns out he wasn't dead. He'd switched sides. It broke something in me. A human, our own, giving them our weapon. After everything we suffered, he gave them the one thing they should never have had. And now they were planning to unleash it. But here's the worst part. Grim accessed some of the drive files from Rice's ship. And what we found wasn't just betrayal. We found Phase 2. The Coalition had developed a new kind of dark matter. Synthetic, stable, controlled. Unlike ours, raw, unstable, borderline suicidal, theirs could be mass-produced. They were preparing to build a fleet. A new war was coming. But this time, it wouldn't just be about justice. It wouldn't just be revenge. It would be survival. Because the galaxy had seen what Earth could do, and now it was trying to outdo us at our own game. There's something different about betrayal when it comes from your own blood. I could have handled another species copying us, cloning us, even destroying us. That's war. That's survival. But to know that the man behind Earth's first successful dark matter generator had sold us out to the same bastards who murdered our people? That was personal. Commander Dalton Rice? Brilliant, visionary, respected. Dead to us. He'd vanished 7 years ago. Rumors said he'd gone mad after the failure of the first Leviathan test, when Abyss 1 collapsed its own crew into a singularity during its first jump. But the truth was worse. Rice hadn't gone mad. He'd gotten scared. He'd seen what we were becoming, what Earth had to do just to stand a chance. He didn't like it. Said we were building monsters, that we were trading humanity for vengeance. So he ran. We thought the Abyss had swallowed him. But no, he let the galaxy swallow us. Now he was flying one of their ships, a dark matter warship, sleek, controlled, artificially stabilized. Not like ours, not bleeding, twitching, angry things full of raw power and desperation. Theirs ran quiet, precise, emotionless. That was Rice's gift to them. Dark matter without chaos, dark matter without humanity. He gave them the weapon, and removed the soul. Grim's scans showed something worse. There were 9 more being built, in secret stations buried in warped space, outside normal detection range. They called them the Null Fleet. Estimated timeline, 3 weeks until full deployment, Grim reported, monotone as ever. Give me worst case, I said. If the Null Fleet launches before we intercept, Earth will fall within 4 standard days. 4 days. We had 7 Abyss ships left. They had 10 coming. We had desperation. They had perfection. But we still had one thing left they didn't: unpredictability. We gathered the remaining captains in the war room aboard Leviathan 9. Tight chamber, dim lights, no ceremony. 7 men sat around the obsidian table. None of them spoke at first. We were all thinking the same thing. We weren't ready. One of them finally broke the silence. Commander Brandt from Leviathan 8. Rough-voiced, scarred face, eyes that looked like they'd seen too many planets die. "You really think Rice gave them everything?" he asked. I nodded. Blueprints, core construction methods, reactor shielding, even personality dampeners for the control AIs. "They'll be better than us," another said. "Faster, smarter, cleaner." I looked at each of them in turn. All true. But you know what they won't be? They waited. Angry. That was what Rice never understood. He thought emotion was a flaw. Thought rage made us unstable. Thought grief made us irrational. He never realized. It was the only reason we were still alive. You don't build a weapon like Leviathan because you can. You build it because you have nothing left. You build it because you've buried your father under collapsed rock. Because you've watched your wife scream as she's dragged onto a transport ship that never came back. Because the universe spit in your face for centuries and called it peace. That's why our ships worked. Because they were angry too. Still, emotion wouldn't win a war. We needed a plan. So we made one. It was insane. It was suicidal. But it was ours. We called it Operation Collapse. The idea: strike the null shipyards before their fleet launches. Don't wait. Don't regroup. Don't beg allies that never came. Just go. A preemptive assault with what little we had left. 7 Abyss-class warships. No reinforcements, no exit plan. Each Leviathan would strike a different shipyard simultaneously. A full spread offensive across warped space. They wouldn't expect it. No one in their right mind would attempt it. That's why it had to be us. The hardest part wasn't the coordination. It was the goodbye. Every captain knew they weren't coming back. There were no dramatic speeches, no final drinks, just long silences. Nods, a few muttered curses. One of the younger officers, a kid named Rem, stopped me before boarding. Looked like he was barely out of his 20s. His voice was steady, but his eyes shook. "You think they'll remember us?" he asked. I paused. "Number, not the galaxy. Not the Council. They'll spin this in 1,000 ways. They'll bury our names like they always do." He nodded slowly. "But Earth will," I added. "Our people will. That's enough." And so we launched. Leviathan 9 went to Null Yard Theta. We phase-jumped through 2 collapsed wormholes, came out on the edge of a broken system orbiting a black sun. No natural light, no sound. Just the glow of construction stations floating in a dead zone. They looked like spires wrapped in metal veins, building something monstrous inside. And there it was. A Null-class ship, still in scaffold, half complete. Beautiful. Terrifying. It was Rice's final child. We charged the main core. Void spears primed, no delay. Then the alarm went off. "Incoming vessel, signature Coalition Abyss Prototype 1. It was him, Rice. He came out of the void like a ghost. Clean, sharp, silent. No pulse wave emissions. No stress on the quantum fields. Just there." He hailed us. "Commander Rice to Leviathan 9. Do not engage." "Stand down. This doesn't have to end in fire." I stared at the screen. "You should have stayed dead." "You still don't see it," he said. "You've turned Earth into a suicide cult. You've wrapped your pain in steel and sent it to die. I gave the galaxy balance." "You gave our enemies a loaded gun," I said, "and you aimed it at your own people." "No, I aimed it at madness. You think you're righteous? You've erased entire systems. You've killed billions." "Good," I said. "Means we're not done yet." He didn't respond. Instead, he powered his weapons. Grim flickered to life beside me. Engagement protocol initiated. Warning. Their systems outperform ours by 27% across all vectors. Doesn't matter, I said. We have rage. We have spite. We'll shove it into the engine if we have to. Acknowledged. Final protocol unlocked. Are you sure? Yes. I opened the throttle and charged. 2 warships. Same skeletons, different souls, clashed in the dark. The impacts ripped through the fabric of space. Dimensional shockwaves echoed. Reality twisted. The black sun pulsed like it knew something ancient was dying. Rice was surgical, cold, efficient. I was brutal. I didn't dodge, didn't calculate. I let the ship bleed. Grim rerouted everything into the core. Final strike. This will collapse both ships, it warned. I know, I said. Just make sure we hit first. One last thing, Grim said. Would you like your name on the Earth Wall? The Earth Wall. A digital memorial on the last surviving colony. 1 name added per sacrifice. No, I said. Let them write their own names. Mine ends here. The final collision wasn't light. It was dark. A scream through physics. 2 Abyss warships colliding at maximum speed. Black cores turned inward. A tear formed in space. Not a wormhole, not a breach. A scar. And through that scar, everything burned. When the light returned, only wreckage floated. Rice was gone. Leviathan 9 was dust, but Null Yard Theta had collapsed. 1 down, 6 to go. Earth didn't fall that day, but we weren't safe. Not yet. The war was still burning, and in the shadows of the void, something else was watching. Something older than all of us. Something even dark matter couldn't touch. Leviathan 9 was gone. Wreckage scattered through Null Theta's orbit like cosmic shrapnel. Slivers of obsidian armor drifted silently beside the cracked bones of Rice's prototype. A collision that should have never happened. 2 ships that were never meant to meet. And now both were dead. The black sun over the wreckage pulsed like a fading heartbeat, shrinking as its gravity bent from the shock. The space around it wobbled. Damaged. Reality scarred. But Null Yard Theta had been erased. 1 down, 6 to go. Grimm's backup core, installed secretly on Leviathan 7 before launch, reactivated 2 hours after the battle. No voice this time. Just raw telemetry. Readings from the breach, data from the singularity, and 1 warning. Non-classified anomaly detected in dimensional residue. Origin unknown. Status active. Observation recommended. At first I thought it was just glitch noise, a phantom echo from the dark matter cores rupturing. But as the rest of the fleet reported in, they saw it too. A ripple, something moving inside the scar Leviathan 9 left behind. Not coalition, not human, not anything that belonged here. I don't believe in ghosts, but whatever crawled out of that tear in space wasn't made of matter. It didn't register as a ship. Didn't give off heat. It wasn't an AI. It wasn't a weapon. It was present. The way your skin prickles before lightning. The way silence feels loud right before something breaks. The fleet regrouped at Outer Field 7, a dead zone beyond the reach of any known beacon. We had 5 Leviathans left, 4 still combat-ready. 1 half melted. Operation Collapse had destroyed 4 null yards, including Theta. That left 2. But the enemy was learning. Fast. Their ships were adapting. The last report from Leviathan 3 before it imploded showed that the enemy's new prototypes were mimicking unpredictability, simulating human response. Rice had taught them well, maybe too well. "Commander, we have a decision to make," said Brandt from Leviathan 8. He stood across from me in the command tent. Tired, gaunt, but still breathing, still dangerous. "They'll finish the Null fleet in a week," he said, "and when they do, Earth is done." "No reinforcements coming," I replied. "No backup. No second strike." I nodded. Then we finish this. One last assault. He was quiet a long moment. Then he added, "What about the thing?" He didn't want to call it anything else. None of us did. Superstition clung to it like frost. Every time someone looked at the scar footage, they felt wrong. I pulled up the last encrypted footage from Grimm. What we saw didn't make sense. The scar had warped space into a funnel. Not a black hole, not a rift, something older, something waiting. And inside it floated a shape. Not a ship, not alive, but aware. It moved like it noticed us noticing. Grimm's final scan only showed one word in corrupted data logs. Witness. No other context, no math, just that one word. We didn't know if it was watching the coalition. Or us. But if it was triggered by dark matter, then we'd awakened something far worse than Rice's betrayal. The Earth Council back home, what was left of it, sent us a classified packet, an override code, a final directive. They called it Protocol Omega. Inside was a blueprint, something forbidden, something even we hadn't built yet. Project HOLLOW. It was theoretical. Pure speculation by the original Abyss engineers before the fleet was even real. A ship built entirely from the void. No metal, no AI, no control panels. Just compressed emptiness shaped into a living shell, something that could only exist for minutes, maybe seconds. Held together by the sheer collapse of reality inside its own heart, it would burn every resource Earth had left. One launch, one strike, no return. But it could end the war. Or end us. I stared at the schematics for hours. There were no blueprints, just madness. The human brain wasn't supposed to even understand how to construct something like HOLLOW. The dimensions looped. The instructions contradicted themselves. At one point, a margin note simply read, "Accept paradox. The hull must exist before it is built. And the core? It required the sacrifice of a Leviathan-class Abyss core, still active, still intact. In other words, one of us had to die." Brant volunteered before I even asked. "I've already got reactor instability," he said flatly. "It's been spiking since Null Delta." I looked at him. "Doesn't mean you're done." "It means I'm close." He offered a bitter smile. "Let me go out as something useful." We built the hollow launch ring in secret, used pieces from wrecked Leviathans, ran it under a phantom signature so coalition spies wouldn't detect it. It looked wrong even before it was complete. It bent shadows around it. Sound didn't carry near its center. Engineers who worked too close to it reported visions of burning stars, dying gods, and worse things. One went catatonic. Another walked into open space without a suit. Grimm called it birth shock. As Brant prepared to link Leviathan 8's core to the structure, we gave him silence. No ceremonies, just respect. He looked at me before entering the vessel one last time. "If I make it, what happens next?" "If you make it," I said, "you kill every goddamn ship they have." He chuckled. "And if I don't? Then we die screaming, but we make it loud." The ignition took 30 minutes. The core pulsed, screamed, and then Hollow launched. It wasn't a ship. It was a scream in space, a jagged tear flying forward. Inside it, nothing. A negative signature, a hole where matter wasn't allowed. The enemy never saw it coming. Their final fleet had just deployed. 10 Null-class ships. Perfect, cold, beautiful. They died in 2 seconds. The Hollow crashed through their formation like time folding in on itself. Their ships didn't explode. They didn't shatter. They stopped existing. Every quantum particle that made up their cores was unwritten. And then, just as quickly, Hollow collapsed. Gone, like it never was. Brant, too. There was silence after that. Total galactic silence. Earth had no more weapons, no more fleets, no more miracles. And that's when the scar opened again. It didn't speak. It didn't fire. It simply arrived. A mass, a shape, a presence that defied everything we knew. It didn't come from our galaxy. It came from what came before, what watched. We named it the Witness because that's all it did. It didn't attack. It didn't move. It just stared. And every ship, ours, theirs, civilian, alien, pirate, received the same message across every channel, every language, every code base. You have awakened the silence. You have called attention. You will not be spared again. The war was over. Because something bigger had noticed, something older than empires, older than gods, older than even hate, and now it was watching, and we had to figure out one last thing, not how to win, not how to kill, but how to survive what came next. We thought the war ended with HOLLOW. We were wrong. We thought the galaxy would bend once the Null Fleet was shattered, once Rice was dead, once the last Leviathan had torn through their perfect order like fire through dry grass. We didn't expect something to crawl out of the scars left behind. We didn't expect the Witness. It didn't move like a ship, didn't transmit like a life form. It existed without coordinates, a formless shadow that bent light wrong and whispered through interference static. You couldn't see it, not really. Sensors described it as unresolvable mass. But if you looked in its direction too long, you felt it. In your thoughts, in your blood. Like it had fingers curled around your spine, just waiting for a reason to squeeze. It never attacked, never threatened, never declared war. But when it sent that first message, every system in the galaxy went dark for 11 seconds. You have awakened the silence. You have called attention. You will not be spared again. It didn't come from a source. It came from everywhere at once. And something inside us broke. Back on Earth, the last council member, Director Tenor, a man who'd served underground during the first orbital bombings, issued a single message to the fleet survivors. No orders, no politics, just a question. What the hell did we wake up? The scientific teams had no answer. Even Grimm, the most advanced AI system ever linked to the dark matter grid, couldn't process the data. Unknown form. Dimensional bleed suggests it predates linear time. Possibly non-corporeal. Possibly a concept. Possibly a god. That last one? It didn't come from Grimm. It came from an engineer aboard Leviathan 5. He slit his own throat 2 hours later. The galaxy responded the only way it knew how. Panic. The Confederacy of 9 Worlds shut its gates, every relay node offline. The Ex Lorem Senate offered prayers to an ancient void deity they used to call folklore. The coalition? It fractured within days. Mutinies, uprisings, whole systems went dark. Not because they were attacked, but because they couldn't cope. The last functioning broadcast came from a station orbiting Geras Prime. We tried to be gods. We tried to rewrite silence, and now the silence rewrites us. After that, nothing. And Earth? We were broke, burned, scattered. No Leviathans left. No fleet. No standing army. Just data, fear, and a cold question. What comes after you've become the most feared species in the galaxy? Only to realize you're not alone in the void? We set up a black site beneath Titan's ice crust. Only surviving fleet officers and engineers were allowed in. We called it Echo 1. A listening post. A watchtower. We pointed every sensor we had into the remains of the scar, into the place where Hollow had collided with the Null Fleet and ripped space open like a mouth. We waited. And then, we heard it. Not words, not language, something deeper, emotion, fear, but not ours. The Witness was afraid. That changed everything. Grimm processed the signals for 6 straight days. No sleep, no breaks. And then it made a statement. There is something beyond the Witness, something it runs from. We did not wake one. We woke many. Hollow opened a gate. The witness came through to close it. Rice had feared we were building monsters. Turns out we were summoning them. And now, the one thing strong enough to erase fleets with a glance, it wasn't our enemy, it was the warning. Can we contact it? I asked Grim. Unlikely, not in ways we understand. But you said it feels fear. Yes. Then it can feel. Yes. That was enough for me. I gathered what was left of the fleet command. 5 men, 2 cybernetics, 1 AI core. The old war council was dead. This was a new war. We had no guns, no ships, just raw knowledge and scars. But I knew one thing. The thing the witness fears is coming, and we have one chance to prepare for it. The only way to understand the witness was to become like it, to stare into the scar and not blink, to cross into what lay beyond, and survive. I sent a message to the last underground base on Mars. Classified directive. Final authority. Activate Project Descent. Project Descent was a failure from the old war. A neural dive system designed to connect a human mind directly to folded spacetime. The goal was to see what existed in the dark matter rifts, to learn how to navigate them, how to predict what lay inside. It drove the first subject insane. The second vanished. The third died before his brain hit the floor. But now we had no choice. We needed one volunteer. I went myself. The capsule was cold, needles in the spine, tubes in the eyes, heart rate synced to the fold generator, every synapse in my body prepped to unravel. The AI warned me one last time. This interface will break your perception of self. It will unmake who you are. I was unmade the day they took Mars, I said. This is just the rest of it. And then I dove. No lights, no time, no body, just endless black. And voices, not words, not memory, intent. I saw planets before they existed. I saw creatures made of scream and light. I saw the witness, young, once, fleeing from something without name, something that burned concepts just by being real. And then I saw us. Humans. The last mistake the universe made. Not powerful, just willing to go further than anything else ever had. And it hated us for that. I surfaced screaming. 3 hours of blood, memory loss, hallucinations for days. But I brought something back. Coordinates, the origin point of the scar, the place where it all started. We would go there. One final mission. No ships, no fleets, just one vessel. Not metal. Not dark matter. Built from memory, grief, and the piece of hollow we salvaged. We named it Vigil. And when it launched, only 3 people boarded. One of them was me. We're en route now. Into the place that taught the witness to run, into the void that watches back. No promises, no chance of return. But if we don't make it, if this is the end, then let this record show. It wasn't aliens that made us dangerous. It wasn't war, or power, or vengeance. It was this. We kept going. Even when everything said stop, even when the gods said kneel, we didn't. It didn't hum with power. It didn't obey controls. It didn't glide. It floated. Or maybe it sank. There were no engines, just a gravity fold wrapped around the memory of motion. It didn't fly through space. It slipped under it, and it only moved toward one place. The scar. The wound Leviathan 9 had ripped in the universe, the place that had stared back at us. There were 3 of us aboard. Myself, Dr. Kess, former Leviathan engineer, the last living mind that had helped design Hollow, and Kalis, Grimm's sentient core, uploaded into a containment drive the size of my palm. He wasn't human, but we trusted him more than most men now, not because he was logical, because he understood fear. We reached the edge of the scar in silence. It didn't look like a hole. It looked like a decision the universe regretted. Space around it bent wrong. Colors faded into monochrome, gravity pulsed in slow heartbeats, and sound became something we tasted instead of heard. Dr. Kess wept the moment we crossed the light threshold. Not out of pain, out of recognition. "I've seen this before," he said, voice shaking. "In dreams I never had. In memories that weren't mine." Kailas simply said, "Boundary reached. Beyond this, nothing holds meaning." Perfect. We descended. No countdown, no warning. Just the slow pressure of unreality pushing against every cell in our bodies. It was like falling through memories. Not yours, someone else's, someone older. I saw flashes. Images burned into my brain. A spiral star collapsing into language. A child made of equations screaming into a mirror. A god kneeling before something with no name. I wasn't sure if I was breathing anymore, or if breathing had ever existed in the first place. Kailas began to break first. Core stability degrading, temporal drift escalating, my identity is fragmenting. He sounded unsure. The one thing we counted on not breaking was the thing breaking first. Kess tried to anchor him, inputting stability loops, rerouting logic patterns. It worked for a minute, until Kailas said, "I remember dying. But not me. Someone else." I watched them scream into a black sea that had no bottom. He stopped talking after that. Then came the light. Or maybe it was the absence of light, so intense it felt like radiance. It formed a shape ahead of us, like a being, tall and endless but shifting too fast to see clearly. It stood still, yet it walked around us. It whispered, but we didn't hear words. We felt truth. The witness. It had followed us. Not in anger, not in hunger, in warning. This wasn't its domain. It didn't want to enter, but we had. And so it came. Not to fight us. To beg us to turn back. I felt it like a heartbeat under my skin. Images flashed through my head. Earth as it once was. Mars, burning. A galaxy fractured by war. And then something else. A city made of silence. A throne with no shape. And an eye that stretched across dimensions, slowly opening. The witness wasn't the threat. It was the lock. And we had shattered the door. Kailas reactivated, but different now. His voice staggered, like multiple versions of himself were arguing. "We are trespassers, but not invaders. We are keys, and this place was built to remain shut. You asked what the gods fear. This is it. The first thing. The only thing. The thing that doesn't care if you are divine or dust." Dr. Kess broke, screamed, ripped off his helmet, froze, melted, exploded into sound. I don't know how to describe it. One second he was there. The next, he had been converted into memory. I remembered being him, then remembered watching him die, then forgot both. It was just me and Kailas now, and the witness, and beyond it, the throne, the thing it had come to seal away. We passed the last threshold. The vigil began to vibrate, its form unraveling, dissolving into theoretical geometry. Kailas whispered something then. "This is not a god. It is the question that God asks before creating itself." And then we saw it, not with eyes, with history. It didn't attack, it didn't welcome, it acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement, every war, every scream, every leviathan burned into meaninglessness. We weren't its enemy. We weren't even its curiosity. We were a side effect. And still, it remembered Earth. It remembered the moment humanity pierced silence. The moment we built the first warship out of desperation. The moment we threw logic aside and chose wrath instead of extinction. It remembered how far we were willing to go. And it saw something it hadn't seen in a long, long time. Potential. Not to rule, not to conquer, to end. Kailas spoke one final time. "It chooses you. Because no one else is reckless enough. Because Earth is the only species that destroys to learn. Because gods fear choices. The throne opened, and I stepped inside. The throne wasn't a seat. It wasn't made of stone or energy or matter. It was choice, solidified. A singular point in space that should have never been touched. A thing that wasn't meant to be looked at, let alone occupied. But I stepped in anyway, because that's what Earth does. We cross the line, we spit in the face of warnings, we don't know when to stop, and sometimes, that's the only reason we survive. I didn't feel myself sit. I didn't feel my body anymore. It unraveled behind me like a bad memory. I became observation, a presence within presence, and around me, the witness trembled. It didn't kneel, it didn't bow, but it backed away. Even it couldn't stay near the throne for long. It had tried once, long ago, before time had names, and it failed. That's why it became a watcher, because knowing what was beyond that throne and touching it were two very different things. Now I understood. This wasn't a throne for rulers. It was a mirror for endings. Those who sat here saw things as they were. No lies, no gods, no heroism, just truth, raw and blinding. And this was what the gods had feared. Because once you saw truth, you couldn't play God anymore. The universe peeled open before me. And I saw it all, not through space, through consequence. I saw Earth, ruined, proud, defiant. I saw the Leviathans, each one a scream turned into metal. I saw Mars burning. I saw Rice's betrayal. I saw the Null fleets die. I saw the witness tremble. I saw myself. I saw you. And I saw the thing beyond everything, the question, the unanswerable, the void's origin. It was not evil. It was not conscious. It simply was. It didn't destroy civilizations. They destroyed themselves trying to understand it. It didn't attack species. They ripped themselves apart trying to match its scale. It was the echo before creation, the stillness before sound. The reason even gods had limits. But something changed when Earth touched it, when I touched it. Where others saw horror, we saw opportunity. Where others collapsed, we learned. Where others screamed, we asked questions. It didn't give answers. It gave us ourselves. Because that was the final truth. Humanity wasn't special. We weren't chosen. We weren't prophesied. We were just relentless. We were the noise that kept crawling forward, and the universe finally realized, that's worse than godhood. As I sat on the throne, I made no wish. I didn't ask for peace, didn't beg for war, didn't try to resurrect the Leviathans or erase the coalition. I just let the truth flood through me, and I became the first human to understand why the universe flinched when Earth rose. It wasn't our ships, it wasn't our tech, it wasn't even our fury, it was our refusal to surrender meaning. Every other species saw their gods fall and collapsed. Earth? We turned their corpses into fuel. That's what we'd done with dark matter, with void tech, with the throne itself. We took things that weren't supposed to be touched. And we touched harder. Time passed. Or maybe it didn't. Eventually I stood, or thought I did, and the throne released me. But I wasn't the same. I wasn't human anymore. Not physically, not mentally, not philosophically. I was something else. Not divine, just complete. Like a question that didn't need to be answered anymore. The witness waited for me outside the throne's radius. It didn't speak in words. It offered silence, and I returned it. But we both understood. The game was over. Gods had failed. Civilizations had cracked. Truth had been touched. And now? Earth wasn't feared because we were a threat. We were feared because we were done pretending not to be. I returned. Not in a ship, just appeared, in orbit above Earth, ruined, scarred, breathing. The last Leviathan frame drifted in low orbit, powered down. The council was gone. But the people? Still there, still building, still asking what was next. I gave them an answer. We would not rebuild fleets. We would not conquer. We would not kneel. We would remember. And from the memory we would expand. Not through force, not through terror, through understanding. Because we knew now what the void was, what it watched, what it feared. And the worst thing the universe had ever known? An intelligent, angry species with nothing left to lose, who just learned the truth. We didn't need war anymore. We didn't need gods. We became the ending they all ran from. Not because we wanted to, because we had to. Because someone had to look the universe in the eye and not flinch. That was Earth's final war, not against ships, not against aliens, against the lie that we weren't meant to matter. And we burned that lie down with a whisper.